Yo, I'm Poison type. And like you, I am very excited because last night, the Repentance Plus patch in the Binding of Isaac finally dropped and brought with it a whole bunch of gameplay changes. Let's cut to the chase. I want to talk about them. Right off the bat, the thing that people are most excited about, of course, is online co-op. But if you're like me and you're gonna continue playing way too much single player, you're just as interested in all the items that got buffed, or in some cases, functionally changed outright. So let's get into it, starting with the simplest changes and working our way up to the big stuff. For the simplest buffs, a few actives just got their charge time reduced. Jar of Wisps, previously a 12-room recharge, is only 6 now. Neat. Void, always a 6-room recharge, is only 4 now. Cool. And my boy Tainted Lazarus now has his flip, but only has reduced down from 6 rooms to 4. But the 3 most interesting cost reductions, in my opinion, are the beans, baby! The bean, kidney bean, and butter bean all gained a passive recharge in active enemy rooms. The bean and kidney bean at 4 seconds and butter bean at 2 seconds for a full charge. Now, the bean and kidney bean have always been real decent room clearing tools, and being able to use them multiple times can really make a difference, especially early game or in a weak run where you don't have much else going on. But the big winner here is Butterbean. Personally, I've been playing Isaac long enough to remember when Butterbean was basically a joke item, and to a lot of people it still is, even after previous buffs made it a pretty okay utility item for deflecting shots and making funny noises. But being able to use Butterbean every 2 seconds really makes it a useful tool at any point in almost any run, with the combination of being able to deflect shots, push enemies chasing you away, and doing very reasonable damage if the pushed enemies collide with the wall. It takes practice, and it takes work, but I really think this thing is worth a second look. Even if it is still, with its little bean heart, a meme item, I can see it carrying a run. I'm not saying it's the new Sci-Fly, but give it a try next time it shows up. It's a lot of fun. For the last 2 small active changes, we have Tammy's Head, which has always been real okay, unless you have Brimstone. But the patch note said, reduce the duration of the animation. Yeah, no, they straight up removed the animation. It feels way better to use now that it doesn't interrupt your tier flow, and it's just a straight buff to your damage now. Feels good. And then Lemon Mishap, which might be good now? The puddle it makes is a little bigger, but more importantly, it doesn't disappear over time. Could be fun to try with Habit or Sharp Plug, maybe throw a Lost Cork in there. Baby, you got a stew. A stew of... never mind. So before we get to the big stuff, there's a bunch of little changes with passives and trinkets that are neat. Like, Little Delirium gives you a conjoin charge now. Thanks. It Hurts gives your tiers blood creep. That's actually probably pretty strong. Parasitoid works properly with technology and Brimstone. My beloved Jupiter heals 2 hearts instead of giving you empty containers. Okay. Tonsil triggers more often, every 6 to 12 hits, down from 12 to 20 hits. Okay. Lighter can remove Tick. Alright, that's actually good flavor there. And Bag Lunch and Wishbone actually might trigger once in a while. They finally added these 2 items to the game. Oh, wowie. Speaking of being added to the game as usable items, Short Fuse now increases your bomb damage by 15%. Huh. Okay, now for some buffs that I think are really nice quality of life improvements for items I thought were pretty meh before the patch. Starting with Dead Bird. So now, Dead Bird works like before, triggers on hit, but if you stay at half a red heart or less, or a whole red heart or less with Eve, the bird just stays hanging out with you. Yeah, that mean the little fella is not you're soloing Delirium or anything, but damage is damage. It's nice, he's just a little guy. Error, the 404 trinket, got a massive buff to bring it in line with its cousin Modeling Clay, and that now you get to see what trinket you have active in that room while you're carrying it. It's such a small thing, but it lets you play around it as you enter rooms and removes the guesswork of trying to figure out what you're carrying. Like Modeling Clay though, this effect is removed if you swallow it, so keep that in mind. God's Flesh is a lot more interesting now. I guess a lot of people don't know that when you hit an enemy with a God's Flesh shot and they shrink, you can step on them and insta-kill them. Pretty cool, but also not useful with enemies that spawn ads or fire shots or explode. But it is now. Not only does it proc twice as often, but any enemy that would damage you when you used to stomp it to death, now it doesn't. Plus, enemies give a little white flashing visual cue so you know when the effect is wearing off. This should be a lot of fun to experiment with. And lastly, Vasculitis. Oh man. This thing used to add so much visual clutter to the screen, I did not like having this item. Now, the shots that leak out of enemies when you pop them have a very distinct and decidedly not as distracting color. Makes it a lot easier to parse out enemy shots that can hit you from your own vasculitis shots when the screen gets busy. Very nice. A+ buff here. Alright, that's all the simple stuff. Now let's talk about the big ones. Serious buffs and changes to what used to be the bottom of the barrel and now range from really cool to real new powerhouse items. And if you like this video, I don't know, I don't usually do stuff like this, but if you think it's cool, maybe subscribe and maybe I'll do more in-depth Isaac stuff, and feels good when the number goes up, and I worked hard on this, please. Anyway, here's my picks for the top 10 best buffs. Yeah, that's right, I tricked you into watching a top 10 list video. Never mind, we're not doing that. But number 10 is Delirious. So, the ultimate item from Afterbirth Plus, the big bad final boss summon, has always been really bad. You summon a delirium form for one room at 12 charges, and against bosses it usually just does nothing and dies. But now, well, sometimes it still just does nothing and dies, but the boss comes with you. That's it, that's the buff. That's not quite it, but it is the coolest part. It doesn't feel like a waste of an item now. And if you summon a weaker boss, the item drops to 6 charges until the next use. And if you get a stronger boss, like the adversary or something, it can actually do decent damage before it dies. You can't have more than one delirious boss at a time. It's still a little underpowered, I think. But it went from one of the worst actives in the game to at least cool and marginally usable now. Number 10. Number 9 is Evil Charm. Now, unlike the other items on this list, Evil Charm used to at least kinda do something. It gave you +2 luck, and it made you immune to Dogma's static attack, I guess. But now it's kinda neat. It gives immunity to spiderwebs, poison mushrooms, and fireplaces, and it lets you stand an enemy creep for a second before you take damage, so as long as you keep moving, it's functional immunity. Plus, it makes you immune to enemy fire attacks. That's super cool. This seems like the kind of thing you pick up now and it just randomly protects you more than you think it would. I don't know, I'm about it. Number 8 is Epiphora. Of all the items that don't outright damage you with explosions and stuff, I'm pretty sure Epiphora is the item that has dealt me the most damage over the course of my Isaac career. I always tunnel vision on getting Epiphora going and wind up putting myself in bad situations, taking damage, trying to keep my tier rate up. Not anymore. Epiphora is now a smooth incremental tier rate as you fire, meaning as long as you're holding the button to fire for any length of time at all, you will get value out of this item. Taking the thinking out of a mediocre item and just making it work is a real boon here. And in the course of making this video, I learned that I've been pronouncing it wrong. It's not Epiphoria. I even spell it wrong in my notes. Epiphora. Number 7 is Milk. Milk used to be just so... ugh. At least, like, it hurts, can get out of hand if you get hit multiple times in a room. Milk just gave you too small a buff, and taking damage to trigger it wasn't worth the reward. It's completely different now. After taking 10 hits, it actually breaks, giving you a tier buff for the whole floor. And the patch notes say it blocks shots, but you can kite enemies into it too, making it very easy to break at the start of each floor and just giving a really nice damage buff. And even if you don't go out of your way to trigger it, it's another case of going from mediocre to just working, one way or another. Milk. Number 6 is Mars. Now, I've been a Mars defender since the first time I picked it up. You haven't lived till you've killed beasts with Mars plus Kamikaze. But I get the Mars hate. It was too touchy, too easy to fling yourself into danger or put yourself out of position unexpectedly. Mars has gotten a full rework, now giving a visual indicator to when you've double tapped and you're starting a dash, and it allows you to cancel it in a short window before the dash starts, and it gives you a short invincibility period when the dash is over. I already missed that it used to trigger instantly, as now you have a brief period before the dash where you can still get hit, but I can already tell that this is a much more user-friendly attack item now. It still does a ton of damage too. Like, Mars has always been good, but now I think it's going to be good for more people and not just and not just the crazy masochists who try to make something work that hurts you. Is this a metaphor? Number 5 is Little Portal. Man, Little Portal. Poor little guy. I'm all about finding the use for less loved items, but the combination of doing almost nothing for you in combat and accidentally deleting items you really wanted put this solidly among the worst items in the game for me. Well, or it did. He got a full rework. So now, you double tap the fire button to send him out, so no more constantly eating your runes and hearts, but the completely new thing is when he spawns his portal, he takes you to a brand new, completely unique room, a storage bay, that persists between floors. So now you can drop off your extra trinkets, cards, sometimes even pedestal items with butter or moving box or something. Can't decide between keeping damage items or utility items or going for a game break? A little homie has you covered now. I'm excited to play around with this thing more in the next couple weeks. Number 4 is Linger Bean. We talked about beans already, and in 4th place here is the 2nd best bean now? Hold on, I'm getting ahead of myself. Linger Bean was in contention with Little Portal for the illustrious title of worst piece of garbage ever. I mean, it felt like it did very nearly nothing. But now, this thing represents a surprising amount of damage. Every 4 seconds while you're firing, you put out a little cloud, just like before, but it does way more damage, and then gets way bigger. The bigger it gets, the less damage it does, but compared to the nothing it did before, Linger Bean kind of blows stuff up now. And on theme with some of these other items here, you don't have to work real hard to make it happen. Beanstalks are up this year, I'm telling you. Number 3 is Data Miner. Okay, hear me out. I'm pretty sure Data Miner is still something you shouldn't take. At least it's not for the faint of heart. Short and sweet, Data Miner messes with your stats and your sprites just like it used to, but now, if there's a pedestal in the room, it turns the pedestal into a glitch item. We have TM Trainer at home. Yeah, don't take this, but me, I have a long and storied history of ruining my runs with Data Miner, and oh man, it is so much easier now. And the fact that this is such a wild effect on such a common item just makes my heart warm, you know? Data Miner rules. Never mind, I take it all back. Take Data Miner, use Data Miner. Live a little, would you? Number 2 is Hushy. Here he is, y'all. The single biggest glow up of any passive in the game. Hushy used to be such a sad representation of an endgame boss down on his luck. It was the worst possible combination of having to do a lot of work to get your mediocre item into position to do mediocre damage. Hushy's jacked now. Works almost exactly the same. I haven't figured out what exactly changes his trajectory when he hits a wall, but well, look. The damage speaks for itself. Hushy does a lot of work, and if you can put it inside a boss or a stationary enemy, keep an eye out for Hushy in your future runs. Little guy rules. And number 1, the best new old item. You know, I wasn't expecting this one. All of these other items needed the help, but Mega Bean. It's always been like fine, right? Not super exciting, but it's a free bomb, free paralysis, damage, it's fine, right? It is so very much not fine now. The patch notes say, and I quote, creates a catastrophic fart that sweeps the entire room. Cool, right? Toxic shock or a longer stun effect or something? No, it's Mama Mega. In bean form. I don't even know what else to say. This thing is so gnarly now. And, if you were curious, yep, it opens Boss Rush and Hush. This is a top tier pickup now. I can't wait to blow stuff up with it. Catastrophic indeed. So, that's just about everything in the patch notes regarding the Repentance Plus patch that just dropped as far as items. There's a handful of other minor things, including a couple different shop prices, item charges, bug fixes, etc. The only big thing I didn't cover was Abyss having more specialized locusts, but that feels like it could be 15 minutes on its own. I will leave that to an entomology expert in the future. That's it. That's the patch. I hope you learned stuff, and I don't know, if you feel like it, I play a whole lot of Isaac over at twitch.tv/poisontype. Come and give me a follow, come hang out, come say hey. And again, if you want more of this stuff, then cool, I'll make more of this stuff. Just let me know somehow. Click the buttons that people tell you to click. That's all, thank you. Thanks. Thanks.
I have to book up a while.
Wait. Yay! Oh,
Yay!
Again.
You got hit! No! We gotta try green mode, because that was like the one thing I never got to, because beta ended suddenly. Yep.